Hey guys, sorry this review is a little delayed. I bought Star Wars TIE Fighter on Steam. I bought the biggest freaking joystick I've ever seen in my life at Best Buy because it was the only one they had to get the game working properly, and you have no idea what a continuous struggle it has been pulling myself away from my most favorite game of all time to play something that came out of Titus Software. This is Blues Brothers 2000, shout out by developer Player One Incorporated, who also shout out previous review subject Hercules the Legendary Journeys. I was not prepared for how terrible Hercules turned out to be. It was basically a half hour or so of gameplay stretched and padded out into a 7 to 8 hour game, and it played like someone tried to remake Zelda Ocarina of Time after having just overheard a brief conversation about it. Hercules was such a mesmerizing train wreck that curiosity drew me to this game, Player One's other magnum opus, which launched on the same day and was also not sold in stores. This was only sold to Blockbusters. This game wasn't released, it escaped from quarantine, and now it's time to sterilize this pestilence upon the Nintendo 64. The game begins with Elwood, Dan Aykroyd's character, in prison when he gets a letter from Sister Mary asking him to look after Buster, aka Macaulay Culkin's character. And Elwood immediately forgets about the postcard and says he needs to get out of jail for the Battle of the Bands competition. Isn't that just the most compelling story you've ever heard in a video game? The convicted felon who, best case scenario, hospitalized at least 30 cops and caused untold property damage, wants to enter a Battle of the Bands. Kind of pales in comparison to,
You must locate and save the Emperor.
The first level of the game, the prison, is just a circular hub with several puzzle rooms leading off of it. The level design creativity is just staggering, and I'm being extremely generous when I use the word puzzle. I think most people wouldn't even dignify standing on a directional pad to steer people around one stationary obstacle as being a puzzle. There's only one room you can go into at a time, and the next room is arbitrarily opened when you finish the previous one, so the game is entirely linear. The first room you have to get around a bunch of giant inmates who attack you on sight and crawl through some vents. This is easier said than done because the combat inhales all of the dropped prison sour soap. There's about a full 1 second delay between pressing the B button and actually punching because the animation has Elwood wind up before he punches. But enemies punch much faster, have a much longer reach than you, and the hit detection seems very biased against you. It's almost impossible to land a punch without getting hit, and it takes several hits to take one guy down. You also have a ground pound that doesn't work at all against these roided up dudes, and only sporadically works against the other enemies you run into later. It's only in the game because Mario has one. It wasn't until I got to the boss of the prison level that I found a hint saying you have a slide attack that knocks down huge enemies, the same huge enemies that you never see again after the boss fight where you're given this hint. What was the point of waiting to tell me how to fight these enemies until after I fought all the heavies in the game? And the sucky part is that the slide is the only attack that works reliably against any of the enemies, so naturally it does like half, maybe a third of the damage as your punch, and takes a ton of hits to kill anything. Now, this game is blatantly trying to rip off Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and the other great platformers of the Nintendo 64, and if it's not clear yet, it will be by the end of the review. So what random-ass game did they decide to throw into this rip-off potpourri? Metal Gear Solid! I am not kidding. Enemies don't attack you until after they see you, and when they see you, they have the traditional MGS exclamation point above their head. You're encouraged to sneak around enemies by crawling, which reduces your visibility, and it completely doesn't work. See, every enemy's patrol pattern is to walk 6 feet to the left and then turn around. You'll never be able to get past a guy before he walks back and trips over you, plus these enemies are packed so closely together that stealth really is a total waste of time. In the later levels, trying to use stealth to get around enemies is 100% pointless because Elwood can jump about 20 feet into the air. You can just leap over anybody that you don't want to fight. They threw this stealth system into the game, horrendously screwed it up, and then they still didn't even use it! Now, the biggest issue with the game, as it was for many Nintendo 64 games, is the camera. The camera doesn't stay behind you as you move, which was the golden rule for the good Nintendo 64 games like Donkey Kong 64 and Shadows of the Empire. It's ridiculously hard to see what you're doing because the camera just kind of floats to wherever it wants. Sometimes the camera even swerves into an overhead view so you can't see anything. And the shitty camera really doesn't help when all of the enemies can kill you in just a few hits and have so much range to their attacks that you get nailed failed if you wander anywhere near them. The only way you'll ever be able to see what you're doing is to constantly use the C buttons to wrestle with the camera, and even then, if you try to move the camera through a wall, the camera stops budging and you get this god-awful noise. Ah! I'm guessing that's supposed to be microphone feedback to try and be cute, but it's just annoying as hell. So if you're in any kind of enclosed environment or tight geometry, you just can't move the camera. You can press the C down button to have the camera zoom out, which lets you see more of what you're doing, but it seems like as soon as you start walking, the camera zooms right back in again. It's like there's a toddler off screen who knows he's not supposed to touch the camera, so he waits until he thinks no one's paying attention to move it back where he wants it. Camera isn't an issue in... No, stay on topic. You're playing crap. Stay on the crap. Stay on the crap. The controls are clunky. Crouching and jumping have a tendency to not work while you're moving, so your best bet of getting through this first room is to just knock out all the heavies and then go for the switches. Once you hit the last switch, a guard comes out of the room in the corner. Go through the door, you clod! Oh, you're supposed to punch out the guard to leave this room. So why is this designed to look like a wide open door if you can't go through it? The game doesn't have an autosave feature. You save by going to the pause menu, and it only takes getting sent back to the very start of the level when you run out of lives once before you start saving after you find anything. But even this doesn't help you, because after you lose all your lives, you still get sent back to the start of the level and have to hike back to where you were. After the third or so time that I died, I came back to life and the music and sound effects just all went silent. The game was completely muted. Not that I'm complaining, the music sucks bass, but I kind of feel like I need music for the review. Exiting to the main menu doesn't even fix the bug, the sound is just gone! I've never seen that happen before! There's no demo that plays on the main menu, by the way. Even the devs didn't want to play this. A few times in every level, you'll run into someone who wants to teach you a dance move, and you're forced into this really stupid dancing minigame. My best approximation of how this game works is that some arrows and a button appear on a pulsating bar. Every 4 beats, the bar flashes a color, and you enter the directions and then press the button when the color appears. It makes absolutely no difference when you enter the directions. It doesn't matter if you time the control stick movements with the flashes or the lack of music, as long as you enter it before pressing the button. And the game blocks off your progress through a level until you've beaten each of these mini-games. What is the point of putting in a rhythmic dancing game if rhythm makes absolutely no difference to beating the game? It even plays the exact same music every single time you run into one of these games. These aren't even hard! Why are these here? By the way, this minigame is the game's multiplayer mode. The entire multiplayer mode. Can you think of anything else you'd rather do with your friends? So, Metal Gear, this dancing crap, are there any other completely random gameplay mechanics you'd like to throw in? How about that cliched card matching minigame that they throw into every game for a cheap extra? You've got to be kidding me! This is the first boss. You fight a lunch lady by flipping over lunch trays looking for matches. How perfectly random. And this is the second boss. The camera sucks so hard that you won't even be able to see him, and the camera usually ends up inside the guy. How perfectly shitty. Once you get to the outside of the prison, the game starts playing a blues song called Cheaper to Keep Her, but I don't know if they only felt like licensing 20 seconds of the song or if it was written by Mariah Carey, because the song is just one sentence that repeats over and over and over and over until you start praying for the no sound glitch to flare up again.
Cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. Cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. Cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep her. Cheaper to keep her.
And the sick thing is that Cheaper to Keep Her plays at least once in every level. Was someone having troubles with his girlfriend or something? There's 4 or 5 other songs listed when the game boots up. Where are those? Why don't you play one of those? The objective of every level is to collect all 10 musical notes. Except it isn't. Every single level is completely linear. To beat the level, you just run to the end. The notes are all in plain sight, so why do they have this item collecting if the levels are just basic run-to-the-end platformers? Well, besides the fact that Mario, Banjo-Kazooie, and the other games were desperately trying to rip off head collection side quests just like this is a shameless attempt to pad out the game by forcing you to go back through the entire level if you didn't find the notes the first time. Also, massive nerd moment, but you're collecting 8th notes, but when you pick them up, the notes are stacked double 8th notes. You should be getting 2 notes at once whenever you find one of these. After you rescue the black guy whose name I neither know nor care about and you beat up the warden, you're told the remaining 2 members of the band have been abducted by the mob to prevent you from entering the Battle of the Bands. I'd try to think of some snide remark, but I'm too busy trying to figure out why the mob would give the furry crack of a rat's behind about a Battle of the Bands. So you go to Chicago to rescue your bandmates. Chicago looks like a bigger, more open area where you would have more of a chance to explore, but it's not. There are giant doors that you can't go through until you break into someone's apartment to steal a key that they have for some reason. There are fire hydrants that you have to open in order to access the apartments to pillage them in the first place, but the fire hydrants don't turn on unless you go to the sewer, and you need a wrench to go into the sewers. The entire level is a bunch of backtracking and wandering around, looking for the one path that will let you advance. It's also a ton of massively pain-in-the-ass platforming. If you hated the camera in level 1, then you will swear blood vengeance upon the camera's family in level 2 when you're jumping over bottomless pits and the camera is too busy staring square at a wall. So you're constantly wrestling with the camera to shit. The big problem with the game is that it's just not fun. Most of the platforming is extremely basic in its design. You're just hopping over platforms, not making your way through interesting terrain or anything, just hopping over platforms. In the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th levels, the platforms are all suspended either over pits that kill you instantly, or positioned so that falling means you have a lot of backtracking to do. The stress of having to make every single jump, combined with the jumping controls being stiff and the camera being ass, makes the platforming in the entire game tedious. The game feels like work. All of the enemies, and I do mean all of the enemies, are basic melee enemies that walk slowly and are super easy to avoid, and the combat sucks so hard that the only time you'll ever want to fight enemies is when you need an extra life. The combat and enemies are so dull and avoidable that it all might as well not exist. So the entire game is just boring. When the game tries to be creative, it just throws you against an obstacle that kills you instantly, which adds to the stress and tedium of the game since it can send you back to the start of the level. Either that or it just throws you into a moon logic puzzle that's dirt easy apart from figuring out what the hell the game is asking for. The game is just so poorly designed that nothing is fun. The entire game feels like tedious busy work. I know that it's not as glaringly obvious or interesting a flaw as Hercules, where most of the game has you doing absolutely nothing, and it doesn't give me much to talk about, but it's a very dull and still very real kind of awful. What is this, the 3rd identical city block I've run into? Seriously, the layout of the Chicago level is city block, alley, sewer, block, alley, sewer, block, alley, sewer. This is the 2nd level of the game. How are you out of ideas already? You're already having to recycle entire environments. Oh my god, something different! Look at this. This set of platforms leads to nowhere. They erected a set of platforms with the express purpose of leading to nowhere. There are little records scattered all over the ground that give you hints when you walk over them, and it seems like most of the records are there to explain how the puzzles work, because they're too unintuitive to figure it out yourself. The 2nd identical city block you run into is a total dead end with nowhere to go, until you find a record that basically says you need to look for a don't walk sign. You wander around until you find a button by complete accident. This is the first button like this you've ever run into. You punch it, and eventually a truck stops so you can use it as a platform to continue. It's always a sign of great game design when the game has to flat out tell you the solutions to puzzles. Also, if you try jumping on the truck before it stops, it moves out from under you because apparently it is coated in some unstable material that reduces the coefficient of static friction between any 2 objects to 0. Trying to jump on any other vehicle results in falling through the car and then getting run over by the very same car that you just passed right through. The only part of Chicago that isn't just running through a boring empty hallway or jumping annoying platforms is the 3rd sewer that you run into. And here's what I mean when I say when the game tries to throw in some variety, it just falls flat on its face. You start getting chased by this giant crocodile with the camera locked into a headlong view. If the croc catches you, you die instantly. And remember, running out of lives, of which you have 3, forces you to trudge through. Hey! I couldn't tell that was a drop-off until I fell down it! Okay, now I know. Aw, shit! Now I have to jump over a series of platforms, and I only have a second to see the platform, register its location, and make the jump before I've wasted too much time. Shit. Okay, past the platforms, I've got to be close to the end. Cock! How was I supposed to react to that? Last life. Come on! Come on! Ass! Back to the start of the level. You know, Paul on that guy with the glasses has a song that he plays for times like this.
Backtrack, fucking backtrack, gotta do this shit again. Backtrack, fucking backtrack, o'er and o'er and o'er again. This game sucks, it's really painful, got a pang of deja vu. Hey, good to see you, I remember seeing this crap 5 hours ago.
And get this, it took me running through the sewers and getting a game over again before I realized this wooden plank right here is a springboard. You just walk into it to trigger it and beat this section. Now, this is the first time I've seen a springboard like this in the game, so I have no idea what it is, and your first instinct being chased by an instant death crocodile is to jump it, which gets you killed. The entire game is full of puzzle elements that you see once, have no idea what they do, and they never pop up again. Hey! Elwood just ran straight off the roof! I know I pressed the jump button, and then he did it again! I swear I'm not incompetent. Get this, if you're running on a slope, about 90% of the time, the game will just refuse to acknowledge you pressing the jump button, causing you to run to your death every time you forget about this little bug. It's bullshit! You rescue who I'm assuming is John Goodman's character, and he tells you the final member of the band escaped the mob and is hiding in a graveyard. Which is a perfect place to hide, what with its completely flat and open expanses and near total lack of places to hide. Oh wait, I'm forgetting this is a video game graveyard where you have to climb retracting steps and scale cliffs to visit your resting loved ones. Gee, someone was a fan of Little Shop of Horrors, weren't they? By the way, these things can attack 90 degrees in the wrong direction and still hit you. The graveyard is significantly smaller than either of the first 2 stages. It's just 4 rooms connected to a hub. Each room has 2 notes in it, and you're allowed into the rooms 1 at a time, so there's only one direction you can ever go. I was going to explain in detail why each of these rooms pisses me off, but I don't want to stretch this into a 2-parter. Suffice it to say that each room is an exercise in tedium as you wander around trying to figure out what your goal even is, plus jumping on moving platforms with the awful camera. Ladies and gentlemen, my exact reaction to finding out that you disintegrate instantly upon touching water. What? And add to the game's growing list of glitches, not being able to go through doors because you don't approach them in precisely the right way. The part of the graveyard where I really just wanted to pinch my controller through a dev's face was this hallway you have to run through before the boss that's full of piranha plants, no I did not misspeak, and it's full of guillotines, water pits, rolling rocks, and Indiana Jones boulders that you have no idea how they'll move until after they've pancaked you, all of which kill you instantly. And it just goes on and on and on. This hallway alone is about 5 minutes long at least. I am not kidding. It just keeps going and you just keep dying, and when you die 3 times you have to start it all over. I could be playing this right now! You kill by far the easiest boss in the game. You rescue Buster. Wait, if St. Mary, or whatever her name was only just telling Elwood about the kid at the beginning of the game, how is he already a part of the band? Anyway, you rescue Buster and you head off to the Battle of the Bands. And then you're in a swamp. Seriously, the game never even makes a half-assed attempt to explain why you're in a swamp when they just said you were going to a completely different place. They gave up, they just threw this level in and didn't even bother with a half-assed excuse. The 4th level is a linear hallway. Use dynamite to blow up a wall. Really? Are those supposed to be your version of chain chomps? You do another damn dance competition, and what the hell is that? The hell do you want from me? Jump over tiny moving platforms that are barely larger than I am over water that kills you instantly? Oh, the barrel spat up to get away from me! This is my hell. This is my hell right here, and the problem is, now I'm super stressed not to lose all my lives or I'll go back to the start of the level and have to go through this crap again. You eventually come across this minigame where you have to shoot flies at frogs to move further into the level, but you need 10 coins to play this stupid game. This is the first time in the entire game I've needed coins for anything, because the only thing they do in the entire rest of the game is give you extra lives when you collect 100, and I don't have enough coins, so I have to go back to the last room, collect the 4 coins that respawn, go back into that room again, collect the 4 coins again. If this shit isn't optional and it takes absolutely 0 skill to hunt up the coins, then what is the point of making me pay 10 coins in the first place? So I take a crack at the minigame and... Oh, what the hell? I'm hitting this frog! I'm hitting this frog and it's not registering! I have to go and round up the coins again. You know, I'm having major flashbacks to Hercules, where one of the bosses you have to kill by shooting at targets, and the game doesn't register about 90% of your shots. How did these dumbasses manage to cock this up twice? What is it about shooting targets that is so damn hard to program? But get this, eventually the game decided to register my shots and I completed this minigame, only to have to beat it a second time because the first time the game glitched out again and the level wouldn't proceed. Blah blah blah, you kill some spiders, there's another stupid dancing minigame. Oh, f*** me! More moving platforms! More precise jumps over more water where one false move kills you instantly. I swear, I am really close to the end of my patience with this game. Shit, What? What? So now the water doesn't hurt you. You can swim in it, you can jump out of it, and you take no damage whatsoever, while deep water through the rest of the game has killed you instantly. What? I have no words for this. The game doesn't follow its own rules. Did someone different design every single room, for Christ's sakes? Eventually you get to this part where you have to run away from this giant hillbilly dude, and no matter what I do, he catches up to me and kills you instantly. This isn't like the crocodile where you have to jump the pipes or else the croc catches you. This guy catches you before you have a chance to put any distance between you. It's like he's just automatically faster than you. I'm on my last life. How do I shake this guy? No! Back to the start of the level. Do all that shit over again. Have to jump this damn creek again. No. I quit. I just dropped all the craps I don't give about this catastrophe of ass. I know this game is supposed to be easy. I know that I'm probably losing gamer cred by giving up. I don't care. I've got better things to do. I don't need to do the post-review summary and recap, right? You get that this game is shit. The only thing I've got left to say about this game is, judging by the status screen when you load up a level, you not only have to beat all the levels and get all the musical notes to beat the game, I think you also have to find all 4 band members' musical instruments. You are told this a grand total of 1 time in the game. When you rescue the black guy at the start of the game, he idly remarks that he needs his guitar. Apart from that one oblique clue that you're likely to disregard, the game, I'm guessing, just blindsides you at the end by saying, yo, you need to go back through all 4 levels again and find those instruments before you'll let you win. Like, we want to artificially pad out this game some more, so now we're going to force you through all the levels again for something you didn't know you were supposed to be looking for. The entire game just feels like it was cobbled together by amateurs. There was no defining vision of what this game was supposed to be, so it just feels like a jumbled pile of random levels and mismatched mechanics. And it's all shit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a Thai advanced production plant to save. And I've also got a god-awful video game that nobody asked for, based on a god-awful sequel that nobody asked for, to chuck in the garbage.